Hello, good morning, how are you? So this Ember, whatever we're calling it, is going to be about um, redirects, promises, transitions, a quick little cool thing that I like about the router. And basically, here's what we are starting off with. We've got this little Ember Peoples application, which is just showing a list of people, and you can drill down, and we haven't even implemented the sort of drill down page. So what I'm going to show is just a way that you can use transitions in a promisey way to bring some sanity to lots of asynchronous and transitiony logic in your app. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this them peoples thing, and when we click this lonely home slice, actually show the information about this particular person, because right now it's just showing a giant list of people. You want to actually have the profile page for lonely home slice. So what we're going to do, so right now we have this mapped application of the implicit top-level index route that comes with every app. We have this people resource, and show is where we're going to be displaying the profile. Or maybe we'll just call this profile, no big deal. And we need to define this profile template. So we'll just use the one from above, and we'll say profile for whoever is loaded into this route. Oops. And what am I doing wrong here? People profile. Probably doing something horribly wrong. Oh, I know why. I can't just start off at the URL here because I haven't actually programmed this stuff to know how to load a particular person. So I'm going to always need to start off. That's not what I want. Where am I? Wow, did I just totally confuse this thing? 3703. All right, we're back. The perils of using the same JS bin 4,000 times in a row. Okay, so we got this thing. We got home, does nothing, them peoples, which is apparently now getting an error. Attempt to link to people show failed, right? Because I changed it to profile. Oh, where am I? I'm just all over the place. And blah, 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 blah. So we want to change this to profile. Now lonely home slice is working, and then we can click this, and now we're in the profile route. So let's say that we wanted to do something where if you navigate to this route that's supposed to be listing an index of things, you want to detect that you want to detect that there's only one item, and if there's only one item in that list, just transition to the profile versus showing a list of people that only has one person. This is a pretty common use case in an app. So pretty easy way to do this would be to let's give ourselves a little more room here. Would be to go to people index routes. Actually, you can do this in kind of two places. You can sort of decide where you want to redirect. You can either do this in app people route or the implicit people index route, which is where we're actually showing this list of people. And so you are going to, let's say we're going to put it in people index route. Actually, no, we'll say that it's people route that's going to be in charge, this top level resource route that's going to be in charge of doing this. So you've got this hook in your route called redirect, and this is where you can put redirect logic. It gets past the resolve model. So whatever is here, actually, let's put this below so it gives some idea of the sequence of things. And this is going to get whatever the resolved model from the model hook is. And so from here, people is going to be this array of people, and this is where we can check and be like, if people.length equals 1, I mean, I guess we can handle the case people.length equals 0 later, but this sort of gets the point across. So if people.length equals 1, then what we can do is redirect elsewhere. We can redirect to this people profile route by doing this transition to people profile and the first element in this people array. So let's see if this works. Click people, then peoples has redirected us to profile for lonely home slice. And if we were to add one more person to this, then we would see that's not what I wanted. That's crazy. How is that happening? Oh, here we go. So Lonely Home Slice, Lonely Blorg. You can go to either of those individual ones, but the main thing is that when you click on them peoples, it's showing both. It's not redirecting. It's only going to redirect to the profile page if there is only one person in that peoples array. So again, now we click them peoples, and then we're in profile for Lonely Home Slice. So the other thing that I wanted to do was, say you've got some logic elsewhere. Let's just put it in the index route, this sort of top level default one, which we haven't defined yet. So let's just make a little template. This will be our homepage template. So it's going to be called index. And we'll say homepage. So when we are home, come on. What am I doing here? I got this, got all this stuff. Probably just some weird JSBin thing that I'm not thinking of. Oops. Come on. I wish this should be like, Blue's Clues, where I pretend to talk to the audience and get the obvious feedback for what I'm forgetting. But I can't think of it. We're just going to try and change this. There. Now it catches up. I think I know what's up. More JSBin crap. All right, so we got homepage to show up. And what we want to do is have a button here that says, do the async thing. And what we're going to make this do, we're going to make this transition. We're going to make this button transition into the people route. And at the end of the transition, fire some action that the now newly transitioned into people route can respond to. And there's some gotchas about that which can happen that we're going to encounter. And we're going to name this action do the people thing, because it doesn't really matter what it does. It's just the fact that this is an action that gets fired and gets handled once you transition to people. So we need to define this action on the as of yet not created index route for this template that we just defined. We're going to make it an actions hash. And we are going to say that this is called do the people thing. And we'll just make sure it's working. Do the async thing. Yeah, all right, so that's working. And what we want to do is from here, we want to transition to just people. So what this is going to do is people's a resource by default. When you transition to people, it's going to go into its implicit people.index route, which is what we have displaying the list of people. And it's also going to invoke all this logic that we set up in the redirect hook down here. So basically what we can expect to happen is if we click this button, it's going to transition to people. And if there's only one person, it's going to redirect into the Lonely Home Slice profile. So let's see if that's working. If my internet doesn't cut out. There we go. So do the async thing, and here we are. Not using a link to, just using an action that whose handler ends up calling this.transition to from within a route. Now say that the async thing that we want to do is to fire some message that is sort of tied to the logic of this button. This could be, I don't know, you click on someone's profile and it's the first time that you've been there, so it's going to say, it's going to put up some tooltips of instructions for how to navigate the page or something like that. And we want this sort of logic to fire whether it sort of redirects at this point or not. So let's make an action on this destination route, which we know we're going to end up in, and we'll say that the action is called, I don't know, display the message. And we'll just use a stupid window alert. Whatever. And this is going to be the action that we fire after transitioning to people. So turns out that transition 2 returns a promisee object. It returns a transition object which has a .then, and you can treat it like a promise, and that promise resolves once the transition finishes. So that seems like a good hook to try and fire this message once a transition is completed. So we'll say, well, let's just say, let's actually just make sure that this is actually getting there. End of transition finished. See if this is actually working, or maybe I'm just totally crazy. So we click this and it says do the async thing, and some reason it did not fire. And it could be just because I'm getting trolled by JSBin again, but turns out I know the reason why it's not firing. And it's not that there is any sort of error here, but a transition promise is not going to resolve by default if there is a redirect. So if we get rid of this logic here and redirect, that transitions to the profile route if there's only one person in there, then we should expect this to work. Transition finished, there it is. But if the redirect is there, that's considered a failed promise, so this .then is not going to work. Unless you opt in to not wanting to consider redirects failed promises, rejected promises, and you can opt into it by saying transition to people, follow redirects, which internally is going to return a promise that will resolve, and if there's a redirect along there, it's going to follow that redirect and resolve when that transition happens. This is something that you can use in Ember 1.4 and onward, which I think is either out or is cresting. I'm not really sure. But let's see here. So let's see if this is actually doing what I think it does. So if we're home and we click do the async thing, and are we actually still transitioning? Yeah, we're still redirecting here. So this is what you can use if you want to have some post-transition logic fire, and you want it to fire whether it redirects or not. Because depending on what you're doing in your app, a redirect might be considered a failure. Maybe the redirect happened because of a login failure, or you're not authenticated to go to that section of the web page. Then you might not want this logic to fire. But we know that given our app and what can happen in the app, that it's fine to just fire this no matter what. So let's finish the job of firing this action on the newly entered people route from within here. And we can say, well, we're going to need a reference to self just because this is not going to be what you expect within this promise handler. So let's say self.transition. No, that's not what we want. We're going to send a message that is going to sort of send an action, and we'll say it's this thing that we defined down here. Display the message. And now this should fire and say it worked, yo. So if we start over again and we do the async thing, we say it worked, yo. So I use this pretty often. If you've got a lot of logic for handling the asynchronous stuff in your routes and in your router logic, as you should, handling all the asynchronous stuff for resolving promises that eventually load the resolved data into controllers, then this becomes a useful pattern because it's sort of, you're guaranteed that after all that crazy black box logic that's going to happen in the router and do all that heavy lifting for you, you can guarantee that at the end of it, you can do whatever logic is at the end of it. I don't know if that was a sensible explanation. Sorry if it wasn't. But I use this pretty frequently, and it's just a good way of appending more logic to a certain kind of transition versus, moving this sort of thing, display message, into people route where it might not actually have the information to know whether it should or should not display this message. So this puts the power of this post-transition logic into whoever is causing the transition and not just the destination transition. So that's all I wanted to say. Actually, there's probably a few more things to say, which is, here's a subtle thing. People index. Nowhere here did I actually define this people index route to return this array, yet this is what I'm iterating over and displaying links to. Well, if I get rid of this redirect. this is what I'm iterating through and displaying list items for. So how does that work? Well, it turns out that I'm actually on Canary because I'm a jerk, and I want you to try this on your 1.2 Ember code and then wonder why it's not working. But this is something that's going to be coming out in 1.5, I think. And that's basically the fact that when you have routes like this, or the implicit index route, like the one that really would internally look like this, except we define it for you if you have a this.resource. There's a new behavior that's coming in, which is that routes that don't specify their model hooks inherit the model from their parent resource. So that's a nice convenience that'll save you from having to define your own people index route and saying that its model returns model for people. So by default, if you've returned a model from people route and your people index route or any other child route doesn't define its model hook, it's going to have the same model as what was returned from the parent resource. So that's why this works. The other thing that I could say about this is we're using two different forms of link to, aren't we? Yes, we are. So we have this inline form up here where you don't pass in a template block. And by block, I mean this is the block syntax, this is the not block syntax. We're actually just passing the link text that should show up here. And whereas down here, it's convenient for us to pass in a template block because we need to do something more complicated like first name space last name versus just a single static text thing or single property lookup. So that is everything that is cool about this JS bin. I hope you got something out of it and have an incredible Tuesday.